a lot has changed since the last time we recorded. And we're just talking about, before we were recording here, we're just talking about how it wasn't that long ago that we also had a little bit of a gap in the recording, and we're talking about how rusty we were. So hopefully we won't be too rusty this time.
Yeah.
But I hear Emmy's toys in the background.
Yeah,
I hear squeaks.
Yeah, she's got some energy tonight. Yeah, I think she may have found a new toy, because I have in the closet here a bunch of excess toys, and I don't know if I ever told you the story about it, but we used to have a large like garbage bag of her toys, just excess toys that we had accumulated. Some that were like duplicates of some of her favorites. Like she has this blue duck that she absolutely loves. She's had it since we got her. It was the first toy that we gave her. And so we have like 2 or 3 of them in this bag. Well, we used to leave this closet door open all the time. And at some point she realized that this bag is full of amazing surprises.
Yeah.
Like there are so many things to play with in this bag, and they all squeak or they crinkle, or like they're so great.
Yeah.
So she started to get into the bag, and at one point just like destroyed it. For a while, like I think it lasted like 3 or 4 days. She'd go into the closet, and she must have like opened up the bag enough that she could like stick her nose in and find a new toy. And so she'd disappear in the closet, and then she'd come back out with a brand new toy. And we're like, all right, like, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
But then at one point I looked in the closet and the bag was completely destroyed. I'm like, all right, well, now there are toys all around my feet. My camping gear from Yellowstone is still strewn behind me, because I just haven't had the time to think, let alone organize things.
Yeah.
So
because you just got back from Yellowstone. You've got the new job situation going. And by the way, it sounds like you have like a creepy clown in your closet. It's just like squeaking his nose in the darkness.
Yeah. We can go with that.
That's what I'm picturing, as this is October now. So,
Yeah.
And then in addition to all of that, my wife and I took our dog Oliver on his first camping trip. So there's going to be some stories from that as well. But I'm very curious about your situation with the trip to Yellowstone. I want to hear about that. I want to hear about the job. So where should we start?
Yeah, let's just start kind of chronological, I guess, with Yellowstone. So just a little refresher. I went out to Yellowstone in the middle of September with David Kingham and Jennifer Renwick. They invited me out to join a workshop that they were leading, intimate landscapes in Yellowstone.
Yeah. It's a lot of squeaking.
It is a lot of squeaking. You're just going to have to get used to it, because that's my life. There's no escaping it from me either. The best that's going to happen is when my dad comes home and she starts barking, and then I have to let her downstairs, and then maybe we'll get away from the squeaking. But this is my life now, Ben. It's utter chaos.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went out to Yellowstone, met up with them, and spent about a week just photographing the thermal pools and the various features around there. It was, I came away with, I think I have 5 photographs that I like from the trip, which I know to a lot of people doesn't sound like a lot, but...
How many of those were like roadkill?
Surprisingly, none.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious.
That's the worst part about the trip, was that I didn't find any like skulls or carcasses or anything to photograph.
Yeah.
So that was rather disappointing. But
yeah. I mean, it's good for the animals, that
I
they're,
suppose.
living nicely,
Yeah. I mean, I would have loved to have like a bison skull with its horns, like in a thermal pool just off in the distance or something. I think that would have been awesome.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
but unfortunately not. I did get a photograph of a living bison in one of the 5 keeper images that I've been working on. I think I have that image right around where I want it. So I'm just working on doing some test prints now to live with the images for a little bit before I title them and throw them up on my website.
It's always a good process just to get a little better feeling for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like I said, as a whole, it was a good trip. It was cold. It was very cold.
Yeah, that's
and
what I was
wet.
going to ask you about, because you were camping there.
Yeah. So what ended up actually happening, and it's the best money that I spent on this trip, hands down. So I landed in Bozeman, Montana, and I went up to the desk for my rental car, and talk about a process. It was like I was standing in line for like an hour or more, just waiting, because everybody always has an issue. There's always an issue that crops up. Somebody didn't do something wrong. There was a guy in front of me who, it was him and must have been his girlfriend or something. And their credit card got declined, and you can only use a credit card that's in your name, like the person who registered it, because they pre-booked it online, and you can't use a debit card with it. And like a whole cluster of issues. But anyway, so I finally got up to the thing, and my rental was for just like a sedan, 4-door sedan. So they're like, all right, well, we have a Toyota Camry here for you, but for $10 a day more, if you want, because they asked where I was staying, and I said campsite. They're like, if you want, we can get you a 4Runner. And it was 2024 4Runner. So I'm like, $10 a day. I don't have that much experience driving a 4Runner. It's one of the vehicles that I'm considering getting in the future. I'm like, sure, let's do it. It's only money, And the best decision that I made, because I did end up sleeping in it every night except for one.
That's good, because I mean, they are incredibly versatile for this sort of stuff, because they're just big enough to sleep in. Which, I gotta say, when it's cold outside, it helps. It really does help.
I mean, it wasn't so much like the cold itself, but it was raining for most of the week that we were there, except for like the last 2 days. And so it was damp. It was cold. The last thing I wanted after a long day of being out was to go crawl into a wet, damp tent and then end up getting sick on top of that because of not being quite warm enough, Plus, you don't have, since you flew there, you don't have a lot of stuff with you. I mean, you have just the normal. So it's different than like when I go on my trips, I have so much stuff I have to take with me that, yes, I can sleep in the back, but I got to get creative. But for you and me, it's got to be like having like a small studio apartment to be able to live out of, I mean, it was nice because I put down the rear passenger seat, the one that's just the one seat goes down instead of the double, I just put that one down. I pushed all of, like, my suitcase stayed in the back of the car. Everything else stayed in the back of the car, pushed off to one side. And I just used that, like, Emmy, a crinkly toy is not the move right now. No.
Squeaking was pushing it, but now the crinkles.
The crinkles right here. And what's even worse is a Christmas decoration, like a Christmas toy, and it says Felice Naughty Dog on it. So that's just very fitting right now. Emmy.
Yes.
Go take it out there. Good girl. That's far enough away. Whatever, I can deal with it. That's just I told you this is how this is going to go.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, I'm not that large of an individual. Like, I'm only 5'8". So I was very comfortable in that little spot once I got everything set up.
Yeah.
But I mean, past that, it was, I don't know. I'm going to close the door because that's really starting to get annoying. Give me one sec.
Yeah.
Let's see how long it takes her to start whining.
Yeah, I just start pounding on the door.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's her move.
Yeah. So how would you, so there was the other workshop that you helped out on a little while back.
Yes.
Any differences in the teaching styles or anything along those lines based on your experiences of seeing the two different ways?
Dramatically different.
Of teaching?
Dramatically different.
Interesting. So what were some of the differences?
I mean, it was just a totally different atmosphere, totally different feeling. This one was less democratic in the sense, like David and Jennifer had a plan and then a backup plan and then a backup plan. Like they know good. Yellowstone like the back of their hand. They've been going there for the past almost decade, I think they had said, roughly. So it was, I mean, don't get me wrong, we went to order pizza as a group for the one dinner. And that was a mess. Trying to get, what did we have? Like 8 or 10, I think 10 people to agree on toppings for pizza, to agree on, do we want a side salad? And what dressings do we want? And do we want to modify it? And yes, way too much after a long day. And this was like middle of the workshop. I think this was like Wednesday or Thursday. So everybody was like tired already kind of deal. So yeah, there were downsides, like low points, I'll call them. But for the most part, it was just a drastically different experience. And that's not to disparage any other workshop that I've been on or their leaders. Because it wasn't like it was better in every sense. It was just different, you know?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Because with different groups, you have different dynamics, different instructors, you have different dynamics. And I think it's great that you're able to see the different ways of working so that you can just be part of it, just experience it and take from each one what you will. And I think it's great that you're able to experience that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because so David and Jennifer do a lot more like classroom work, a lot of lectures and that kind of thing. So the day is kind of structured that we wake up early, we beat the crowds into Yellowstone.
That's good.
Because Yellowstone is a mess. Yeah.
Otherwise, parking with that many people and getting around and all that.
We got it down. We got it down to 3 cars between all of us. And still, parking was in some spots was like a mess. Just trying to find spots, going around in circles until we finally did, or giving up on that spot. And luckily, David and Jennifer had a backup spot or 2.
And I think that's one of the important things of the workshops is having that plan B, that plan C.
Exactly.
That's the mark of a very good instructor.
Yeah, but it was like the first night that we met everybody. We were in the conference room. We weren't planning on going out that night, so we were just kind of doing. I think David gave like a little talk or something like that, and I was just sitting there and thinking, like, I could see myself enjoying this. Like, I would enjoy doing this kind of thing. And I go back and forth on that quite a bit, just based on my personality and everything. But still, it was another reminder, of this is something that I want out of life, or at least to try for a period of time in my life. And of course, that didn't help that it was happening then when I already accepted the job. And when I had this job coming up and I had no idea what to expect from it and whether I would enjoy it, etc. And then as soon as I got back from Yellowstone, it was, all right, time to get to work. And the chaos began. Yeah.
So tell me about the job situation. How's that going? How it started out? I'm curious about all that.
Very overwhelming. It's getting better now, but it's still... it's a lot. The reality is that I'm not used to working for someone else. I'm not used to the administrative side of things. The logistics of the job are what is killing me, really. And there's also a lot to learn because I don't have the background in this. Yes, I can make solid observations and have some good suggestions for some of these cases and stuff, but I don't have the book knowledge to back that up all the time. And so I need to start accruing that. I need to start going through, like, every week we have trainings and that kind of thing, as well as videos and other trainings that I have to start working on. Now that I'm 3 weeks in, I have to start working on that towards, just because it's a requirement.
So is there like several new people that are being brought into it at the same time as you?
No. So we have one guy who is 2.5 months, call it 3 months in. He started a little bit before I began interviewing. Okay. And then there's a woman who is coming in. I think she starts in the next week or two. So we're all starting. Staggered. Yeah, we're stagnated, but we're all starting in the same general timeline. And because of that, we're all like classed the same in terms of we are the foundations classes for trainings versus the core trainings that my partner goes through and those who have been with the group for longer get through. Because foundations, I think, is like a year-long training. And then after that, you go into the core group, something like that.
Is there like a sense of kinship among the other people that are also new to it?
There's just a general sense of kinship amongst everyone, I think.
Okay.
So past the administrative stuff, which regardless where you go, if you're working for somebody else and even if you're working for yourself, you're going to run into it. It's just how it goes. There's always
that side of things.
Exactly. Past that being overwhelming and the mass amounts of material to learn, it's going well. I get along great with my partner. And on the car ride home from one of our clients, she was like, "So why didn't you go into clinical psychology?"
Interesting. So she sees something in you where it's kind of like, it sounds like it sounds that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's reassuring too, to hear that, like, to have my thoughts and observations validated in that sense by someone who's been doing this for the past 20 some years, whatever it's been for her. So really it just comes down to, I'm trying to find my footing. And once I start to get more comfortable in this, then it'll get easier. It'll be better.
You'll fall into a rhythm. You'll know a little bit more of what to expect, and for sure,
exactly.
Like anything that's new.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that makes it tough, but I think I've gotten into a routine now. We'll see how long that sticks out. But my biggest thing was, like, I'm used to going to the gym 3 times a week in the mornings. I wake up at a certain time, I go to the gym, and I don't have to rush at the gym because I didn't have any obligations later on in the morning to worry about. My dad's home now. Curious what she's going to do. Anyway, she's going to be fine until he opens up the door, then she's going to geek out even further. Like I said, this is just life. This is how it goes. I'm just going to release this as is, and it's just going to be great. It's going to be like 7 hours because of Emmy, but fuck, what was I saying? I don't know.
Yeah.
As a whole, I mean, it's once I find my footing, I'm going to be good. But the gym thing, that's what it was. Yeah. So I'm used to going to the gym 3 times a week, wake up in the morning, get it done, but then not have to worry about getting back if I want to do cardio or something for longer. But the problem with that now that I have this job is that on Wednesdays, I have team supervision, team meetings, that kind of thing from 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock, which cuts into the amount of time I have in the mornings.
Yeah.
And then on Fridays from like 8 o'clock or 8:30 until I think it's like 12:30 or 1 o'clock, I have those trainings. And those are virtual, so it's not like a huge deal. Don't really have to like dress up nice or anything to go to them. But still, both of those cut into my usual gym routine, and that was a big thing to try and figure out. But I finally forced myself to start waking up like 5:45 or so. And that gives me enough time to get to the gym, to get back, and even to meet that like 8:30 start time on Fridays.
Yeah.
So,
and I think in the long run, you will grow to enjoy that. Because I mean, I started getting up early a while back when I was trying to balance doing my own photography thing with the day job. And now that I am at a very advanced age, I naturally get up early, and at the same time, like once it starts getting dark outside, I'm like, all right, well, I got to go to bed soon. So just like a proper old person. But yeah, I think for you, being able to kind of start that habit of getting up and then, going to the gym, getting that stuff done. Yeah. There's something quite nice about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I wake up and before I even start work, I feel accomplished. I did something today. So yeah. I can take that stress away. And it also gives rise to the idea of, okay, well, especially going into winter, and since I don't really have the time in the mornings on like Tuesdays and Thursdays like I was doing over the summer, where I'd go for a walk in like a local park or anything. That gets more difficult. I'm like, well, I'll just switch up my gym routine and start going 4 days a week instead of just 3. And instead of doing full body 3 days a week, then doing upper and lower splits back and forth.
Yeah.
Just to change things up and just to keep active, because I need to do something. Otherwise, I'm going to go insane. So
yeah. 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 And you still have the trip to Acadia coming up?
I do. I leave for that on Monday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that is coming up very quickly already.
Yeah. That'll be a nice escape, after the trip to Yellowstone, after getting started with the job, just like we talked about in the past, then being able to just get out in nature and just decompress a little bit, reflect on things.
Yeah.
I think that will be good in terms of, you dive in, but then you get this little break before, diving back in again. So I think that'll be, and how long is that trip going to be?
For the whole week. So
okay, that's good. That's good.
Monday, I leave around 2 a.m. on Monday, and I get back sometime in the afternoon, late evening on that Saturday.
A nice caffeinated drive.
Yeah. It's gonna be something. Especially the first time doing it solo.
Oh, yeah. Emmy's bark sounds a lot like my Oliver's bark.
Really?
I think it's just general small dog bark.
Yeah. Yeah. She does this all the time. She's very reactive. It's quite annoying.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because like, what is the saying? Comparison is the thief of joy. But there's one of our clients, or not one of my clients, but I was with another partner for a little bit of time because my partner went to Washington for last week, or for a couple days. So I was meeting with one of these other clients, and they have just a puppy of some sort, almost like not pit bull, but similar type of body stature and everything. And like, this dog has a leash attached to it, but we're sitting out in the front yard, and best behaved dog. Just general, wasn't reacting, wasn't barking and trying to get at people as they were like walking by in like a vicious or non-vicious manner. It wasn't like trying to chase a squirrel or get all over the place. It was just chewing this bone, or it'd come over to us and start barking at us if we weren't paying attention to it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Emmy, why can't you be like that?
She'll get there. It'll happen. I mean, that's what happened to Oliver. He's actually not very, very barky anymore. And speaking of that, earlier this week, or was it last week? I don't know. Well, last week, we got back from, my wife and I took a several night camping trip up to the Eastern Sierra. Okay. So it's an area where we went camping there last year, and then I went on a solo camping trip there the year before. So this is my third year going up there. And last year when we were up there, we were there for 2 nights. So this is Bishop Creek. So it's just west of the town of Bishop, up in the mountains. aspen groves, beautiful fall color. And so when we were there last year, we thought, Oliver would probably do just fine here. And we should also bring like kayaks next year because there's some lakes up there to go kayaking in. So this was the year that we decided to bring Oliver with us, which was his first time camping.
Okay.
And also brought the kayaks along. So we figured on, one of the days we'll go for a pretty good hike. One of the days we'll go kayaking, and a lot of time just hanging out at camp. But there's a lot of firsts for Oliver on this trip. We've never taken him on longer than maybe a 45-minute car ride. And it's, with a bit of traffic, it's about 7 hours to get up to where we were. So we did not know how he would do on the car ride. We didn't know how he would do camping or sleeping in a tent. We had a feeling he'd probably be pretty good at the hiking. It was off into the wilderness area at decently high elevation, where most of the dogs you see on the trail are more like medium-sized dogs and stuff like that. And we also weren't sure how he would handle the kayaking. That was the part I was the most concerned about, just because I don't feel like going swimming.
Yeah,
and I'm just picturing him getting squirmy, and we had all kinds of plans to figure out how to go about it. But first of all, he did just fine with the ride up there. We just like you're going to be doing with the early morning start. We didn't get started quite that early, but we left our house around 4 a.m. And so there's a lot of different campgrounds up there. Some have some form of reservations. Some of them are just first come, first serve. And so I went on a website and found, we arrived midweek, so it's a little easier to find a good site. Yeah. But there's a website that has pictures of all these like campsites. So I'm like, all right, so here's a variety of campgrounds. Here's a variety of campsites. These are like the best ones to get, the second best. And so we actually ended up getting the second best campsite, which just means that we had some shade, which was nice. But it was in the mid 70s up there. Weather was nice. Oliver did great on the ride up. We got to camp and he was a little freaked out just because I think in his mind, he had to protect us from the world. So he was very much on edge. And when the neighbor arrived at their campsite, he was, in full on like protect us mode. And then as it started getting darker that first night, he was kind of freaking out because he's like, guys, are we just going to be sleeping on the ground out here? Like there's maybe enemies up here. I don't know. But the moment that I opened up the tent and he crawled inside and then he saw the sleeping bag there, he just like collapsed on the sleeping bag. He's like, okay, guys, thank you. I'm glad you have this planned out. But he did well sleeping in the sleeping bag with us. And then the next day we went for a hike because we were debating either going kayaking or going for a hike. But I'm like, let's do the hike. I know he'll do better at that. So we took him on a hike, went up to about 10,500 feet, started a little less than 10,000. So a little bit of elevation gain, but it feels like way more just because you're already at a pretty high altitude. But he did great. He was like pulling me up the hills. So, but he did very well on the hike. It was just kind of funny having this, little dog on the trails up there where most of the dogs were a fair amount larger, but did great with other hikers, did great with other dogs, was completely wiped out by the time when we got back to camp. He just collapsed in his doggy bed and we covered him up in a blanket and he was enjoying that.
Yeah.
And then the next day was when we're going to go kayaking. And so woke up, had breakfast, and there are two big lakes up there, either of which would be fine to kayak in, but there's a little bit of clouds in the sky in the morning. And when there's clouds, there's usually wind. And if you see clouds in the morning, it shows that, things are going to build throughout the afternoon. So we went to one of the bigger lakes and the wind was already kicking up. And I'm like, I'm not feeling this. I just don't feel like this is going to be, a good plan. And so we decided to not do the kayaking and like, all right, well, maybe we'll just head back to camp, get get things packed up and maybe just head home, because we weren't really getting great sleep up there for whatever reason. But then on the way back, we see this kind of it's a lake, but it's a small lake, somewhere between a lake and a pond. And it's in a very sheltered area with big hillsides on either side. All kinds of reeds and stuff along the shore, and some, beautiful fall color in the aspens along the shore as well. And we're like, oh, that's a good spot. So, pull a U-turn, go back there. And we ended up launching our kayaks over there where the water was really calm. And I decided to have Oliver in the kayak with me, and it's a little bit of a wider kayak. And so my wife, pushed me out, and Oliver kind of freaked out a little bit, but then he settled down. And just so long as I had him kind of held firmly between my legs, it calmed him down a little bit, and he was fine with it. So the main thing with him is just so long as he is with us, he is fine. Mm-hmm. And since he was abandoned when he was 1 year old by his previous owner, and I'm thinking it was a scenario where he was dropped off at like a public place, like a park or something like that, where he saw the previous owner walking away mm-hmm. and then was gone. He's a bit scarred by that. So if ever, like when we're at a campsite and then I have like some trash I'm going to go throw away, and he's on his leash at the campsite, if I walk away from him, as soon as I get out of view, he starts like squealing and gets kind of, stressed out. Yeah. And so, and it's a little bit more so with my wife, I think, just because his previous owner was a female. So it, like, when she walks away from him, it kind of, that scarredness comes back.
I mean, it's the same way, except it's more for me than it is. And that's just separation anxiety from her. But yeah.
Yeah. And so in this case, since I'm juggling him in the kayak just a little bit, and then my wife is paddling out a little bit ahead, then he sees her getting away. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I gotta paddle faster to catch up so he doesn't get all squirmy. But even though it was only a brief amount of time that we were kayaking, maybe about, maybe a little less than an hour, maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour, somewhere in that range. During that time, the clouds were starting to build, and then as I was getting things packed up, it started to rain a little bit. But it was great. Everything worked out well. It was so nice to be up there and to not have a camera. And there's tons of photographers up there, and I'm sure they're taking beautiful photos. But it was a sort of thing where it was nice to enjoy it just for what it was. And just thinking back to just floating around with the, rugged mountains, all the fall color, having Oliver there, it was just really, really nice. And so it was quite enjoyable. And so everything worked out quite well. So now we know that he is good for camping trips. He's good for backcountry hiking. He's good for kayaking. Good for tent camping. So he passed all of the tests with flying colors. so that worked out very, very well.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. You sent those pictures over, and man, those hit a different way because I am beyond jealous.
Yeah. It was. It would have been nice if the trip was a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. But just like what I was saying, it's always the sort of thing where, things look a certain way in photos.
Oh, of course.
In real life, like we weren't getting great sleep up there, and our campsite was like right along this stream, so you have this white noise. Everything on paper was great, but I think it's because there was just like this ever so slight slope, which just makes it so like when you wake up, the sleeping bag kind of like shifts down, throughout the night and everything else. And it would have been nice to have a bit more shade and all that, but it was good. I will definitely do that again. And I don't know, maybe if at some point, if I get tired of going to Zion, which I don't know that'll happen, I could see spending some time up there doing some photography now that I have a little better feeling for the light and everything else. Mm-hmm. Probably not doing video though, just doing the pictures for the sake of doing the pictures.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. yeah, so I don't know. It was just it was one of those like jealousy things like that I find myself in of, because I don't know. Let's see. I had, before I left for Yellowstone, and I don't remember if I mentioned this, but I had a bunch of stuff that I had to get done because of the magazine coming out, the fall issue of the magazine coming out. Yeah. And so I had 2 monograph reviews to write, an editor's note to write. I had to make sure that everything was laid out and organized as best as I could prior to telling David, okay, it's your turn to take over and finish polishing everything up, because he does some little details and checks and stuff. I really wish that I had that motivation and the drive that I had during that week for the past 2 years consistently, or at least semi-consistently. Yeah. Because I got everything done for the magazine. I edited like 3 or so of the episodes of this podcast, and scheduled everything out. I got everything for Yellowstone together, packed, and like all the logistics were done. I got 2 different essays written, one that's yet to be published for On Landscape, and one that is the September issue of Dodge and Burn, the little monthly column that I do for them. And I just felt like really productive, like really good about it.
That's because you also had a lot of stuff you had to get done.
Exactly. Yeah. I had a lot of pressure on me of like, I need to get this stuff done before I leave. And I was just thinking to myself, like, if I had like how much further I could be, and it's all what ifs. It's like, it doesn't matter because it's all in the past, whatever, but it's still one of those things to think about. Like, if I had this motivation and this drive, where could I be now? And like, if I maintain that drive as best as I can, even with this new job and new obligations, where can I be in 3 to 6 months or a year or whatever? Like, just something that, it's just something to think about. Like, that's on my mind just because of that week, and to think of like how quickly that momentum drops off. Yeah.
But also that pace that you're working at probably would not be sustainable in the long run.
No.
It's like with like the cycling stuff, some of the workouts I do, they're interval workouts where you work really hard for, a couple minutes or so. Then you take it really easy for a couple of minutes. Then you work really hard and you just do this alternating. And that's actually what makes you stronger and makes your body better able to handle the load, versus if you just go at this constant pace, it's not sustainable. And actually that touches on something too, because I was thinking, like, during the following my spring trip, I had a lot of work to get done, and then I transitioned from that to getting things prepped for doing the print portfolios for the year and doing the zine and getting all that stuff done, launching the pre-orders for both of those. And then finally, kind of around late August, maybe, things started quieting down. And I really didn't have much work to do. And I would still keep very busy. There's always stuff to do, but I just didn't have that really heavy workload of stuff to do. But as soon as that heavy workload dropped off, then all of a sudden the motivation drops off. So it's not like having nothing to do, makes me feel really motivated to do more stuff. It just kind of like perpetuates that mindset. And there was one point where I was thinking, like, man, it would be great to have like some sort of like sabbatical kind of thing where I just like take 2 months off just to do whatever I want. And I realized I have like 2 months off to basically do whatever I want. So I kind of realized that that's what I was, for the most part, in the middle of, because it's not really until mid-October that I start to have the workload pick up again. And then it's going to be really busy all throughout November and December. And then in January, my wife and I are going to go on a trip to Hawaii. So the way that I have things structured, it really is that, you work really hard for a while, and then there's a break. Then you work really hard for a while, then there's a break. But it's just weird how the moment I got to that break, I just started feeling like completely like unproductive. And it just, but then I started realizing like, wait a minute, this is my break. I should be enjoying this, you know? So I can definitely see how for when you had all that stuff to do, you know, you're crossing things off a list. It sounds great. You get that motivation. But then when things drop off, you're like, hey, you know, why don't I have that motivation anymore?
Yeah.
It's like, you just don't have as many things to do it, you know. And for you, you know, things have shifted now where it's a different sense with the job and everything else. And hopefully with your trip to Acadia, you'll be able to sort of embrace that, just relax, you know, take it all in, and you know, not feel like you have too much like hanging over you, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I need to get articles written while I'm in Acadia, but outside of that, there's really nothing that I have to do.
Yeah,
which is good.
Yeah,
but just I need to make sure that I'm allocating time to write these articles, and there's only 2 of them that I need to get done. But yeah.
All right. So I think it is about time for our artist of the week. And so it is my turn this week. And so I was scrolling through Instagram, and the person I chose, I mean, I've loved his work for a long time. And I always try to choose people that have usually less than like 2,000 people on Instagram. And I was actually surprised that he only has like 1,690 at the time of recording. And so this week's featured artist is Alberto Rodriguez Garcia. Do my little accent there.
Adding a little flair to it.
A little flair, yeah. So his website is albertophotography.com. His Instagram username is, I don't really know how to pronounce it, El Europeo, ELEUROPEO. Absolutely fantastic work. And one of the things I think which is interesting, is he has a photo. One year he photographed the same subject as me. We just happened to stumble upon it. Slightly different composition. I don't see it in his feed here, but it was a red maple with some like barren branches and stuff. But I'm not seeing it in his feed.
In his personal favorites gallery on his website, entitled Scarlet Drama. Yes.
And I love seeing stuff like that, because it's a matter of, you know, 2 photographers recognizing the same potential, but with a little bit of a different, you know, vision over the scene. And so it was, I thought it was pretty awesome to see that. But he has this really clean style, really good use of light. I always love to see a photographer that, you know, works in the same general areas I do, just to see their perspective on things. But I've admired his work for a long time. Really good eye for the details. Some interesting, one of the things that I see with him, which I don't see a lot of, is, you know, some shallow depth of field for some close-up stuff. It seems like everyone's trying to like focus stack everything, but I love the simplicity he has just by some of these smaller scenes with the shallow depth of field and sort of soft color palettes, and lots of use of texture. So really, really beautiful work.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Alberto's for a while now. Him and I have had on and off conversations through Discord, especially because of the writing that he does. And I've mentioned him in the past on the podcast here because of his writing. He actually just wrote an article for us for the fall 2024 issue of the magazine, titled The Expanse, which is not for the faint of heart. It's quite a heady article, quite a long article, but it's worth getting through, worth struggling through in that sense. If you're used to the writing that Guy Tall does, the more heady writing that he does, then you'll be fine to read through it. But yeah, I do appreciate his photography maybe a bit more than Guy's. in the sense that both his writing and his photography are quite beautiful.
Yeah.
I struggle with guys' photography sometimes, but that's besides the point. There's one photograph that he has in his personal favorites gallery that I really love that's titled Motherhood. And it's another small scene of almost like a darkened, almost like volcanic kind of rock in a sense, with 3 smaller pieces right at its corner. Just a nice...
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at that one right now.
Yeah. Just a nice little small scene. Really goes along with that concept of photographing something that's more than a rock.
Yes.
And again,
when a person can find that sense of story in just inanimate objects. Yeah.
And once again, that shallow depth of field to help isolate the subject even further that you don't see very often, which is something that I've thought of myself a little bit. Working with digital, it's especially medium format digital, it's very difficult to get everything in focus, even with like a very shallow aperture.
Yeah.
So I ended up picking up a tilt shift adapter for my lens that I have yet to play with, but I'm curious to see how that changes things, or if I just find that it doesn't do as I want it to. But yeah, like you said, you don't see a lot of out of focus areas in small scene photography as much. Everything is all about getting every little detail pin sharp, which isn't always the best case for the photograph in question.
Yeah. There's another image too that I remember seeing a little while back. It's in that same gallery, the personal favorites. It's quite a ways down. It's called A Flock Of. And it's a blue surface of water with a sky reflection. There's some leaves on there, and then there's some shadows from some nearby trees. And so you have this really interesting image where, the warm stuff advances, but then you have some of those leaves that are dark that kind of recede a little bit. And it's just one of the ones where, I could just stare at it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just something about that. It's almost like little bits of gold, floating on the surface of the water. Also very, very well seen photograph.
I still need to go through and read he has a article here, and it's so on his writing page, each of his articles also has like how long it estimates it'll take you to read the piece. And,
that's interesting.
The first one, the most recent one, a day in the life, says like 21 minutes. The next one says 33 minutes. So they're all like longer reads.
53 minutes.
Meanderings on Meaning is the piece that I really want to read. Guy Tall actually mentioned it, recommended it to his readership, to his group. But yeah, that's intimidating as all hell to read through something and maintain focus on something for an estimated 53 minutes. There's a lot here, and I do look forward to the day that I finally commit to reading through it and taking away what I can from it, because I do respect Alberto's his way of thinking. So yeah, I highly recommend checking his work out and seeing what you can take away from it.
Yeah. Cool. I think we're good.
I would say so.
I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.